Otto von Bismarck, 1815–1898. As the Iron Chancellor, Prussian Otto von Bismarck unified Germany by means of blood and iron. How to choose our friends? What led us to decide that he was our enemy? How do we judge whether a person is doing this right or wrong, good or bad? Most of us like to be with people who have the same interests, like to play the same games and joke about the same things. We get angry when people tease us. We have friends, we also have enemies. The same as of nations. Nation-friendly alliance to protect each other. When there are difficulties and when there is war, they try to help their allies and punish the enemy. But for a state leader named Otto von Bismarck, this kind of thinking does not mean anything to him. Thinking like this such an old-fashioned, and in matters of war and peace, the diplomacy of nations, is not an idea about friendship. Enemies can become friends. Allies can also become enemies. Problems, right or wrong, change occasionally and do not mean anything in the long run. According to Bismarck, diplomacy in the world is like playing chess. And this whole world-class chess game. The only thing that remains constant is the self-interest, the needs of my king and my country, he said. He said that in the forest of universal affairs, the devotees are self-centered in order to survive. In such a sub-universe, there can be no friends, there can be no enemies, only the interests are the needs of the nation. And the needs of this nation can be met by the only best way is to threaten or use the power of the nation. Or as Bismarck said, it is through blood and iron, which means to use force and stubbornness. During his lifetime, Otto von Bismarck succeeded in the unification of the divided population in the German states into a single nation. He gathered the people together under the rule of Prussia, his homeland. To achieve this, he organized Prussia 3 major wars and got 3 victories, then as German Chancellor, Bismarck to stab the European powers. This is one of the strengths of his genius, one of the great weaknesses of his view to the whole world, because when he dies, the balance of power he has created is too complex for a person of sufficient intelligence to function. Thus, the balance of power is also disrupted, and as a result, we have centuries of conflict to this day, an era of destructive and brutal wars in history. Many difficult events in the life of the 20th century can be traced back to the thoughts and actions of a person who died more than a century ago. His name is Otto von Bismarck in Germany. Bismarck was born in 1815 in Brandenburg, Prussia. In that year, the Prussian army played an important key role in the Battle of Waterloo to end the military life of Napoleon Bonaparte. Otto's father, Ferdinand Bismarck, was a member of the Prussian aristocracy, a wealthy family. Ferdinand is obese but slow-witted. He lets Otto do whatever he wants. But Wilhelm Louise Mencken, the mother of the Otto boy, oriented her child in a different direction. The mother was not of noble birth, but she was wise and ambitious. Having been married to Ferdinand at the age of 16, she decided to pursue a career in his life through her children, especially Otto, who was very intelligent. When Otto was 7 years old, Wilhelm bought a house in Berlin. She enrolled his children in one of the best private schools in town. A school with rich children and gifted students from the middle class. Entered the university. Otto studied at Göttingen University, a well-known college open to growth ideas. When he was young, Bismarck was known as a child who did not listen to others, not much polite and stubbornly read only books that he liked. When he was in college, he was a swordsman. He liked swords, as a result, there are scars on his face. He drank a lot and gambled a lot of money. When he went to see the opera, he always annoyed the whole theater. When he was young, he was in a relationship with many women. He liked to wear brightly colored clothes to attract attention. Bismarck boasts Bismarck boasts that he does not learn much, but in fact he reads many books and he has a lot of books, and when he grows up he still remembers the words from Shakespeare and English romantic poet and peer Lord Byron and Walter Scott. He also loves Beethoven music. He was ready to serve in the civil service, but he read history rather than law. He was not a good student, but after moving to the University of Berlin, he worked hard to pass the civil service exam. After working for a year, he quit and did not even ask to resign. 6 months later he traveled to Europe with a British woman, but she ran away. Apparently, one of the main reasons for Bismarck give up the government work immediately, was that he refused to listen to his boss. He said, "I play any music I like or do not play at all." When a friend accuses him of stop working like that is not patriotic Prussia, he replied that there were very few well-known state leaders working in a patriotic spirit. He says that in general, there is a lot of ambition, commanding others, wanting to be admired and wanting to be famous. He said, "I have to admit that I also have nothing wrong with thinking like this." When Bismarck finished college, he immediately realized exactly what he really wanted. He joined the army for a year, following the law that required all Prussians to serve in the army for a period of time. Later, at the age of 26, he became a lieutenant in the reserve army. At one point during the exercise, he dared to take a risk to save his horsekeeper and a colleague from drowning by jumping into icy water to save them. Bismarck dislikes military service because he has to take orders from above. He also had to return to the countryside to take control of his family's vast land. At that time, he liked to drink and gambling a lot, so he was nicknamed as Bismarck the Junker. Sometimes he wakes up his friends to have fun with him by shooting a gun into the window of a friend's house while he is asleep. He likes to eat so much and he becomes obese. Until he was over 30, he decided to change his life. It was then that he met two women who played an important role in building the future of his life. A woman named Marie von Thatten, a child of a nobleman near his house. She was a very religious woman. And she tried to persuade him to have faith in God and to live the Christian way. In the past, Bismarck always posed as an atheist and laughed at people who were religious. Marie was beautiful and popular, and she had a strong desire to persuade Bismarck the Junker to become religious. Bismarck likes her very much. Later, Marie decided to marry another man. It was when that he suffered the first heartbreak in his life. A year later, Mary died of a brain tumor. Since the age of 16, he never prays to God. But now he prays to God. During the interview, Marie also introduced Otto to another woman, Johanna von Puttkamer. She doesn't look pretty as Marie, but she had the same deep religious beliefs. Johanna accepts Otto's proposal to marry her. Johanna's father is reluctant to let her daughter to marry Otto. To clear Johanna's father's feelings, Bismarck recounted in a letter that he had wished with tears in his eyes when Marie died. He said, "Now, every day I pray to God for mercy and strengthen my faith." Johanna's father believed and agreed to marry his daughter. Ever since he got married, Bismarck likes to say that God supports him. When he was involved in political activities, he said that he did it according to God's will. He said that now I am just a soldier of God. God can also be his ally for fighting to get power on hand. In 1847, at the age of 32, he was elected a member of parliament. As a child, he thought only of having fun, traveled a lot, and read a lot of books. Now he jumps into politics, but not a simple politician. He planned to change the state of Prussia and redraw the map of Europe. At that time Germany as we know it today, does not exist yet. At that time, there were 39 states where people spoke the German language such as Prussia, Saxony, Bavaria, and there are many smaller German states, but there is no so-called German law, a single German army or a single German government under the rule of a German king. In fact, there is representatives of the German Confederation came to discuss in Frankfurt, but the group was covered by the King of Austria. In 1851 Bismarck was sent to Frankfurt as a representative of Prussia. He was loyal to the Prussian king and his caste, the Landlords. But he has a deep and far-reaching direction, is to clear control of the Austrians from other German states and unite all German states into one strong nation. He lived in Frankfurt for 7 years, learning about diplomacy and understanding of government apparatus and those in power. At that time, Prussian government officials increasingly respected him. In 1859, he was appointed as Prussia's ambassador to Russia. In 1862, he was ambassador to France. In fulfillment of his duties, he met King Tsar Alexander of Russia, King Napoleon III of France, English Prime Minister Benjamin Disraeli. All of them clearly see that a person who was once called the nobles, the junker, is the talented person who need to pay attention to in the future. In the summer of 1862, Bismarck suddenly became an unplanned leader. At that time, the Prussian parliament refused to approve the budget for Kaiser Wilhelm I to reorganize the army. Kaiser, head of Prussia, has also threatened to step down. However, Minister of War Albrecht von Roon proposed Kaiser Wilhelm to nominate Bismarck, who has strong will to be the next prime minister, and see if he could control Congress. Kaiser Wilhelm I agreed. In September 1862, Otto von Bismarck was appointed as Prime Minister of Prussia. Some Prussians knew him from a young age was concerned that he was not thorough. Others worry that he consider only the interests of the rich class as landowners. His first speech in Parliament was a statement that surprisingly, this is a statement that will remain with Bismarck for the rest of his term. He said, "Not a majority in Parliament where big problems are solved, but solved through iron and blood." In the newspapers in Prussia and then around the world, Bismarck's words were published as blood and iron. How to solve the problem? It is only through force make rights. According to the residents, his opinion was reported to be incorrect and led to further misunderstandings. But since then, the word has not been forgotten. Shortly afterwards, the Prussian parliament refused to approve the request of Bismarck interceptors to increase the budget for the military. However, his practice against the constitution is illegal, with the government continuing to collect taxes to pay the army. He did not wait long, he ordered the army to act to achieve his goal. His first destination was Denmark. Two southern Danish provinces, Schleswig and Holstein, bordering Prussia, have been in crisis for a long time. The people of this province are both German-speaking and Danish-speaking. He wanted to build a port at Kiel in Holstein and also wanted to build a canal. Bismarck skillfully persuaded Austria to involve troops in the joint Austro-Prussian invasion of Denmark. At the same time, he neutralized Napoleon III of France, revealing France's ability to expand along the Rhine. He is not afraid of danger caused by the British to help Denmark, and he told a friend that if Lord Palmerston sent British troops to help, he orders the police to arrest them. In the 2-month war, Denmark could not resist because Prussia had big guns, and Prussian and Austrian soldiers were well trained. In a peace treaty signed in 1865, Denmark abandoned the provinces of Schleswig and Holstein. Kaiser Wilhelm really satisfied with Bismarck and praised him as Conti. It remains to be seen whether the rulers of Schleswig and Holstein will be Prussia or Austria. In this regard, Bismarck also neutralized France. He then went to persuade Italy, promising that Italy rule Venice, which was still occupied by France at the time. Through this skillful activity set the stage for Prussia to win the war with Austria. In May 1866, just before the outbreak of war, a Prussian assassin attempted to kill Bismarck because he was angry with the warlord. The young killer fired 2 shots but failed. Bismarck intercepted assassin and stabbed until police arrived. 2 months later, the Prussian army, under the command of General von Moltke, defeated the Austria forces in the final battle that ended the 7-week war. Through an agreement in Bruges, Austria agreed to let Prussia take control of Schleswig and Holstein and other German states such as Kassel and Frankfurt. Austria also vows not to interfere in the affairs of the newly formed North German Confederation created by Bismarck, and Bismarck will not take any Austrian territory. He said that there must be generosity with Austria, so then Germany may need friendship from this country in the future. To repay him, the Prussian parliament pardoned Bismarck for illegally earning money for the army. He replied that if necessary, he would continue to do so. The Prussian parliament also voted to give Bismarck 40,000 thaler to buy him a plot of land and a luxury home in Pomerania. Because he was neutral in the 7 weeks of war, Napoleon III demanded that France seize the territory of Belgium. Bismarck disagreed. France was even more outraged to learn that a German nobleman, Leopold von Hohenzollern-Sigmaringen, had been crowned King of Spain. France ambassador of Prussia demands pledge not to have such this event to ever happen again. Kaiser William, while resting at Ems, he also sent a long telegram to Bismarck, totaling French demands. Bismarck prepared a short document called Message from Ems prove that France threatened to wage war on Prussia. Bismarck shared his document to news. Both the French and the Germans were furious. Napoleon III declares war immediately. August 19, 1870, the French war against Prussia began. Two sons of Bismarck, Herbert and Wilhelm, enlist in Prussian army. Bismarck also spent from 1 week and another week at battlefield. There was a time he nearly gets caught. Napoleon III also went to battle with the army on the battlefield. In the end, through battle in Sedan, the Prussian army won the war and even captured Napoleon III as a prisoner of war. At this point, the revolution erupted in Paris. The rebels declared that they would not lose to Prussia. Bismarck ordered the siege of Paris. Bismarck ordered that no prisoners of war be taken, even women and children were killed. On April 18, 1871, at the Glass Palace in the French Palace at Versailles, Otto von Bismarck, he announced himself the appointment of a new German empire. William I became emperor. Bismarck became as the Chancellor of the Empire and is promoted to the rank of Prince. In return for his gratitude, the Emperor gives him a large plot of land near Hamburg. France was embarrassed and had to pay 5 billion francs in war compensation and abandon its claim to Alsace-Lorraine. At that time, the French people demanded revenge. The people of New Germany cheered in the streets, applauding Bismarck as the greatest German hero. A genius leader who has elevated its country to the highest level among the nations on earth. Germany is a nation of 25 states. Now there was a single army, a single capital, Berlin, and a beloved emperor, William I, Prussia, who had a majority in the upper house. Bismarck is the Prime Minister of Prussia and the Chancellor of Germany, become the strongest leader in the country. He used this power to reform and transform Germany into a modern country by consolidating its own constitution. He also consolidated administrative control. He strives to ensure the same rule of law throughout the country. He strives to make the education system serve the needs of German industry, hoping to make Germany the world's leading industrial nation. As for domestic politics, unlike foreign politics, he was not always successful. Despite the power of the Catholic, he passed a law biased in marriage under civil law, Kant. Contrary to the preferences of the Catholic Church. He also wants to end the Catholic as inspectors, including non-Catholic schools, but because 1/3 of the population is Catholic, therefore, the struggle of the intercepted Catholics were forced to compromise. He wanted to unite Germany, which had a unified culture. He failed as a whole. On the other hand, Bismarck also failed to crush the growing Socialist Party. He said, "When I use the German word, I never include the socialists." Despite his best efforts to prevent the socialists from speaking, writing, and engaging in public affairs, the socialist candidate gained an increasing number of votes during the 1880s voting time. There is a habit of Bismarck, that if he sees that he cannot destroy the enemy, the socialist in one way or another, he works softly to the other way. He makes the parliament to pass his law by giving the German people the things that society promises, such as health care assistance, insurance for the elderly, insurance for the unemployed. The socialists soon turned from revolutionaries trying to overthrow their regime to become loyal supporters of Germany instead. In foreign affairs, Bismarck is clearly working to achieve his long-term goals. The most important direction is to ensure that Germany does not have to face the war coming from outside while the country is growing. So, his goal is to achieve peace and balance of power in Europe. To solve this problem, he organized a coalition of 3 emperors including Russia, Austria, Hungary, and Germany. He also signed 2 agreements with Austria, promising secretly that the 2 countries will go to war if one country suffers attack from Russia, and willing to remain neutral if any country suffers attack from France. Later, this agreement included one more: Italy to defend itself against Russia and France. Finally, he signed an agreement with Russia, telling the Russians himself about the content of a 2-way secret agreement with Austria, surrounded by hostile powers. He processes intelligence softly and bright not to let them squeeze and crush the Germans. As a result, both during his lifetime and for the next 25 years was a period of stability and balance among the nations of Europe. In March 1888, the elderly Wilhelm died. 3 months later, his successor, Frederick III, died of cancer. At that time, William II came to the throne at the age of 29. This king opposed Bismarck's authority as chancellor. William II wants to be a real German leader. He intends to build a strong navy equal to or stronger than the British Navy, and expand overseas beyond, becoming a colony. The two cannot be close. At the end, on March 18, 1890, Bismarck resigned. At his retirement time he enjoys a foresting on a vast expanse of his land. He and Johanna lived happily ever after. Guests often visit him and praise him. The students also visited him as groups. But in the meantime, he has not forgotten Kaiser William II that forced him to step down. He became even angrier. He later wrote 3 books to justify his actions and to attack William II. On August 30, 1898, Bismarck passed away. The emperor went to attend a funeral for a while to lay a wreath. Bismarck had told in advance to bury him at Friedrichsruhe. On the tomb contains his pre-arranged inscriptions confirming his enmity with William II. The inscription reads, "Germans who served the Emperor William I." Till this day, Bismarck is thought to be a genius who created the concept of realpolitik, political reality, a pragmatic trend in global affairs. Even his opponents acknowledge that he is a wise man, even though some say he is a great man, a patriot, a genius, but he is a savage. Some people are even more critical. To ensure a balance of power in Europe, he created a complex fraternal system. But without faith in others, he also did not educate leaders who could take over such a system after his death. After World War I, his failure to educate leader led to the dissolution of all Prussian ruling classes, and at the same time, the empire by Bismarck also dissolved. In the same way, he did not trust the German people and did not introduce them to the government affairs. He asked them to follow him like a blind man. So it is not surprising that there was a particularly difficult situation in the 1930s, German people based on belief in a cruelest person on earth, Adolf Hitler. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to my channel.